Hello, Packers fans, and welcome in to PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, joined by Pete Dougherty. Pete, between the bye week and just having Spoon and Ryan this week, I haven't seen you on here in a while. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it does. It seems like it's been forever. Isn't that weird how the weeks are in the NFL?
Yeah,
A few days seems like forever.
exactly.
What's the old? There's the old saying about a doctor told me this about being an intern. I think it was about an internship as a doctor. The days are long and the years are short. That's kind of how covering the NFL feels.
That does sound about right. You know, we talked to Kurt Benkert today, who has spent his entire NFL career on the practice squad. And he had put out a tweet yesterday, and I asked him who did the math. He said, I did. He figured out he's been in the NFL for 1,319 days. And Sunday will be the first time he'll suit up for a game. And that's pretty insane. And he said, once I did the math and I looked at it in days, I thought that's crazy that it's been that many. And he said, but you just sort of take it week by week, game by game in the NFL, and it passes fairly quickly that way. But that being said, let's talk about the backup quarterback real quick before we get to the main guy. It does sound like Kurt Benkert will be the backup on Sunday. Both he and Matt LaFleur referred to him playing. That means that it's pretty safe to assume Jordan Love will still be on the reserve COVID-19 list. We had thought he might be activated just given the timeline since he is vaccinated. He could have come back a little bit sooner. But it looks like we're going to see Kurt Benkert. And I'll be honest, Pete, I don't know a lot about him. So if the unthinkable happens and Aaron Rodgers goes down, what can we expect from Kurt?
Well, I'm sure it wouldn't be pretty. I mean, he has been, that 1,000 whatever days says, he's been in the league for 3+ years.
Yeah.
So he's been around teams, practicing with teams, and getting a lot of skill work and all that stuff. So he's, he knows the NFL that way. But, he's also been a practice squad guy for a reason, and the physical talents. He's just, doesn't play as fast as the guys who are starting in this league. He's never played, so I don't know for sure how he's going to do. But you would think against NFL starting defenses, this is a lot tougher in a preseason game. You would think it would be pretty rough. So the Packers need Aaron Rodgers to stay upright.
Yeah. Granted, he goes against a pretty good defense in practice, but it's much bigger. It's a much bigger difference when you're out there and the bullets are flying on Sunday morning. If you have any questions about the Packers game, go ahead and drop them in the comments below. While we wait on your questions, we're going to take a look at some practice. This was Pete, and I asked Matt LaFleur to be sure. Oh, watch Aaron Rodgers in the background. I'm going to go home and learn this dance move. Can you do that, Pete? I did ask Matt LaFleur to be sure, and he said this is the most practice reps Aaron Rodgers has taken since really week 9, and even then you could almost argue week 7, because the week of the Arizona game was a lot of walkthroughs, and then he had a shortened practice on that Monday after the Arizona game, and then was placed on the COVID list later that Monday. And he had a Friday practice a week or so ago where he just kind of went through some walkthroughs, but didn't do too much. This was the most physical activity we've seen from Aaron Rodgers in weeks. And then, of course, Jaire Alexander, number 23, out there with a hat trick for practice. This was his 3rd day in a row since being put back on the active roster from the injured reserve with that shoulder injury. Just stacking days on days, taking a little step at a time. Would you want to see, before we get into Aaron Rodgers, let's just take a brief pit stop with Jaire Alexander. Would you feel comfortable putting him out there on Sunday, or do you think you're fine with Russell Douglas, do without him, give him another week or two?
Yeah, I can't imagine with how long he's been out that he'll play this week after 3 days of practice. They always ramp these guys up. Who have been out for, a couple months like Alexander has. So I just don't see – I see basically as close to 0 as you can get without maybe hitting 0 for his chances of playing this week. They're probably – I would think they're a lot better for next week, but, maybe it'll even be the week after that too. they have a limited. They probably would like to have him practice in pads this week. I don't before he plays. I don't think they practice in pads this week. They've been so banged, right? Did they have pads on yesterday?
They did not.
Yeah. So, I would think they'd want him to do a little hitting before putting him out there. So I would, at least one more week, and I wouldn't be surprised if it were two more. And they've got to make sure that his shoulder is sound before they put him back out there, because it's still not out of the realm of possibilities that he'll need surgery. They just have to make sure the rehab and the healing is good enough to give him a shot to play.
Yeah, you don't want to let him get up there and try to jam a receiver and hurt that shoulder even more. Let's see. Who else was asking some questions here? Josh was asking, was Matt LaFleur sick? He sure sounded sick to me, Pete. He
said he doesn't have COVID, but he definitely had a cold. That's for sure.
He clarified, it's that time of year, and used it as a point to reiterate to his players, stay hydrated, get some rest. It's that time of year where the crud goes around, and you just have to sort of be vigilant with it. Randy hopped in here and said, sorry he couldn't help last night. Randy was promising an NFC North championship for the Packers before last night's game. But of course, we did see the Minnesota Vikings defeat the Steelers despite a late push. But I mean, Pete, for all intents and purposes, is this division race over?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would take an absolute utter collapse by the Packers, and the Vikings would have to go on a great run here to make, for the Vikings to win the division. The Packers, you always, it's one thing at a time, so you win the division first, but the Packers are shooting for that number one seeding, and so they have a huge incentive to keep winning. But the division is pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Big weekend for the number one seeding, possibly, because if the Packers win, and then Arizona has to play LA, and that could make a massive difference when it comes to what that number one seeding looks like, because Arizona currently sits there, but of course Green Bay does have the head-to-head. Linda with a good question, since we're talking about Jaire Alexander. I know Russell Douglas has made some great plays, but do you think he's the real deal long term?
I mean, he's done it for enough games now where it doesn't seem like it's at all fluky, does it? I mean, I don't get that sense. I mean, it's not just he's made a couple really big plays, but you watch him down in, down out, even when they're catching passes on him. I mean, he's right there in coverage. That's not every defensive back is like that in this league. Some guys are giving 5 yards away when the ball's being caught. He's played really sticky coverage the whole time. The problem with long term with him is I just don't see how they afford to bring him back. If you look at their cap, they're going to have to mortgage every contract they can mortgage next year, and they still are going to be really hurting for money. And if I don't know if this will happen or not, but if they bring back both Rodgers and Adams, I don't see. I mean, they're just going to have no money to work with, and they're just going to have to let guys like Douglas and even Campbell. I'm guessing those guys will have to walk.
Speaking of Campbell, he was back at practice today, albeit as a limited participant. Matt LaFleur said he's still kind of just going through the protocol. He spent the last week and a half on the COVID-19 list. So he's just sort of going through the protocol to see how he reacts, mostly to the physical exertion, depending on how he does. If he makes it through the protocol, Matt LaFleur said he will be playing on Sunday. Rick with a really good big picture question. I like these big picture questions because you can take it any way you want it. What type of offensive or defensive game plan should Green Bay need to beat Chicago? Our colleague Ryan Wood would say to show up.
I mean,
he is not confident in Chicago at all.
I mean, there's some truth to that. It's, I can't imagine. I mean, the Bears are going to need turnovers big time to win this game. So that would, this is really a game where just taking care of the ball, and it would probably be enough for the Packers. No turnovers. I would think they'd win, pretty soundly. I guess the big thing is just keep this a young quarterback who the way he's going to hurt him is scrambling. So just like they did with Kyler Murray, keep him in the pocket. And I would think the guy's got a talent, and he made some good throws against the Packers that last game, but he's just not going to do it down in, down out like Aaron Rodgers would. So just keep him in the pocket. Don't let him keep drives alive with his feet. And I would think, the Bears, I watched them last week, pretty rough. That was Dalton at quarterback, but it was, they have a really tough time scoring.
I know that you've got to get out of here soon, so we're just going to take a couple more. We're going to take a moment first to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Like we said, back out at practice today, really only the second time since week 9 that he's been at practice. How much of a difference, in your opinion, from years covering this sport, does it make to have that, especially that Friday practice under your belt where you're doing things like red zone and 2-minute drills?
Yeah, if there's a guy who can play well without practicing, it's going to be Rodgers or Tom Brady and guys like that. But, they practice for a reason, because everybody needs practice to stay sharp. So it definitely has to help some that he practiced on Friday to actually get the physical reps and make your body move fast and quick reads and all those things. I'm thinking, if you're the Packers, the most encouraging thing about him practicing Friday was that he was able to, that he felt good enough to do it. So that suggests his toe did heal a fair amount in the last couple of weeks. And as long as he doesn't, do something that really aggravates it on Sunday, that bodes, that at least seems to create a possibility that, the toe is getting a lot better, and maybe he can even get over the hump and it won't be an issue for the rest of the season. Not saying that's the way it's going to go, but that has to be the most promising thing for the Packers, is just the fact that he felt good enough where he could get out there and practice.
Okay. Rebecca asked, will we be able to run on the Bears? I think that's kind of what we were saying is going to be crucial. Just control the ball, limit turnovers, control the time of possession. You see this becoming an Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon game?
I kind of think, to some degree, the rest of the time, it's what I'm writing about for tomorrow, as a matter of fact, is, the strength of this roster is kind of subtly shift on offense from, the passing game to some degree to the running game. That's Dillon and Jones are two of their most talented guys on offense. I think they just have to do more to get the ball in their hands, because that's two of their best guys. They lost Tunyon. That was a good weapon in the passing game. Valdez-Scantling has been hurt, a fair amount this season. Adams is obviously great. You got Rodgers, but, they're two of their best guys are those running backs. So I think it's not just maybe this week, but to some degree for the rest of the season, we'll see more of those guys. And especially, I would think, in games at Lambeau in December and January, where, the conditions call for that. And that's one of the reasons they drafted Dillon, 247-pound back. That's a huge guy. When it's 0 degrees, I don't think guys are, especially defensive backs, are real excited about, tackling that guy when he's coming at you with a full head of steam.
Right. Last one before we get out of here. This question, at least for me, took me so by surprise that I want to throw it at you. For us, Pete, for us fans, what was a bigger reason we lost in 2011? The loss of McCullen Jenkins or Nick Collins? Chase coming with the historical question.
Yeah, they were 15. I don't know if you know this. They were 15-1 that year, but lost in the divisional round at home to the Giants, who went on to win the Super Bowl. Collins for sure. He was a all-pro level player, and he was a difference maker. And Manning had a pretty good game that day, so he made a bigger difference. And if I remember right, Rodgers didn't have a real good game that day either. Giants had good defense, good pass rush, but the Packers just kind of petered out at the end of that season.
Chase, I like it. Come back again next week with another question like that. Dig it up for us. This is good for me too, to learn about the team and its history. Pete, thank you so much yet again. We will see you this weekend. It's a late game. It's a late game, Sunday night prime time. Saw Chris Collinsworth and the NBC crew out at practice today getting ready for what should be a fun primetime matchup. I don't know how competitive it'll be, but it'll be fun. And stay safe in the snowstorm this weekend. If you're in
Kassidy, yep.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be my first big snowstorm since moving here. So check in with me tomorrow.
You're in for a treat. Yeah, you're in for a treat. Be glad you live in an apartment. You don't have to shovel.
Exactly. That was a Huge, huge selling point for me. Stay tuned to PackersNews.com for full coverage as we go right up to kickoff as the Packers get ready to take on the Chicago Bears. Thanks so much.